Okay, welcome to our quick video about acids and bases and their properties. I'm going to do a quick recap of what an acid is and what a base is, and then you guys are going to get to write a few more notes in your notebooks. So, let's go. Remember though, this is a video. If it's too fast, play, pause, repeat to make sure that you get the information you need and actually know what notes you're supposed to be writing. Okay, here we go. Acids. What is an acid? Well, quick review. It has a pH range from 0 to 6, 0 being stronger, 6 being weaker. Acids have a chemical formula typically that begins with H. For example, HCl is the acid hydrochloric acid. And acids produce hydrogen ions, H+, when mixed with water. Bases. A base has a pH range between 8 and 14. These typically have a chemical formula that ends in OH, that hydroxide ion that it releases. So, example, NaOH, sodium hydroxide. And when mixed with water, bases produce hydroxide ion, OH minus. So, that's a quick review of what an acid is and what a base is, and the pH scale of how we actually identify them. But sometimes you don't always have a pH scale and indicators and cabbage juice or litmus paper ready and at hand. Sometimes you need to be able to tell an acid from a base without those things. And luckily, we know some basic properties that'll help us distinguish what acids and bases are from each other. So, how do acids and bases feel? Well, if you have an acid, typically they feel a lot like water. They're just liquid. But be careful. You never know how strong an acid or a base is, so do not just touch things in lab without gloves. Bases, on the other hand, they're more slippery to touch. But again, don't actually do this in class without gloves on. So that's how they feel. But how do they taste? Because we do actually eat a lot of these different things in life. So acids are sour or tart. If you're eating things at lunch and outside the classroom, fabulous. Tart and sour things are probably more acidic. However, don't eat things in lab. Bases taste more bitter. But again, don't eat things in lab. Some other common properties. Acids commonly react with metals and form hydrogen gas, but bases don't. Really, what this does is that acids are what we call corrosive. They tend to cause rust to build up on metals. So, these properties of acids and bases, pause right here and make sure you draw a quick T chart in your notes and get these properties of acids and bases written down. When you've got these in your notebook, come back, press play again, and we'll talk about neutralization. All right, hopefully you paused and now you're back. You've got your properties of acids and bases noted in your notebook. We're going to talk really quickly about neutralization. Neutralization is when an acid and base are added to each other, they neutralize the pH. Now, that doesn't mean they always go back to 7 directly in the middle. If they are of equal acidity and alkalinity, or basic, they'll come back to 7. But sometimes they just get closer to 7. This reaction, when we neutralize acids or bases, creates water and a salt. You'll notice I say a salt, not just salt, because when you get to chemistry class, you'll talk about all sorts of different types of salts beside what we know as table salt. Yes, table salt, sodium chloride is a salt, but in chemistry, a salt is a chemical compound formed by ionic bonds between a negative ion donated from an acid and a positive ion donated from a base. So, for example, NaCl, sodium chloride. That sodium is donated from a base and has a positive ion, and that chloride, Cl, is donated from an acid and is a negative ion. That's table salt, but there's other salts. Potassium chloride, KCl, or calcium chloride, CaCl2, copper sulfate, CuSO4, or potassium iodide, Ki, are all different types of salts that are important in chemistry. So, you don't have to write all of this, but you should at least write that neutralization is when an acid and base are added to each other and they neutralize the pH. And make sure you note that they create water and a salt. When you've got all of that done, talk with your classmates and make sure you show your notebook to your teacher.